Live from the pitch pad in New York City. Get ready to unleash your inner entrepreneur with Pitch Live with Amy Summers. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the Shark Tank, this is the place to be to discover how to turn your pitch into reality. Fasten your seatbelts, pitch stars, because the spotlight is on you and we are about to make success happen. Get ready for Pitch Live in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Pitch Live. I'm your host, Amy Summers, founder and president of Pitch Publicity and Anisi Vox. I'm also a hardworking entrepreneur who's passionate about helping you reach success in any area of your life. And I know that this is possible after decades of experience in perfecting the pitch and enhancing communication skills, which is why I'm here today and joined by Howard Schiffer, who's founder and president of Vitamin Angels, a global nonprofit dedicated to ending malnutrition by providing essential vitamins and minerals to undernourished pregnant women and children worldwide. Howard's journey began as a midwife, where he witnessed firsthand the impact of prenatal nutrition and maternal child health. After a very successful career in the natural products industry, a pivotal moment happened in 1994. It was the Northridge earthquake, and a relief agency requested vitamins for affected families. Howard rallied the natural products industry to donate, inspiring him to launch Vitamin Angels, which provided more than 100,000 vitamins in its first year alone. So fast forward another decade, when Howard and I met, we met through two of his board members, Tom Arts and Anthony Zalesi, who were working with him at that time to enhance Vitamin Angels' visibility and fundraising efforts. And as a result, Howard hired my company, Pitch Publicity, to work on their first large-scale fundraising event at Expo East in 2006. Can you believe it, Howard? It was a long time ago. And we raised more than $1 million at that first event. And then we worked together on many other fundraising events for the next 5 years. Howard's organization has come a long way since I worked with him nearly 20 years ago, when he and only a small volunteer staff, I think he had like 2 or 3 people supporting you. But today I counted, I think there's like 100 people on your website or more. That Howard continues to lead Vitamin Angels. He's received accolades such as, Lifetime Achievement Award, Global Humanitarian Award. And this year, Vitamin Angels celebrated its 30th anniversary. It's a huge milestone. Congratulations, Howard. You've remained as committed as ever in giving every child the opportunity for a healthy future. And I'm just thrilled to have you here.
Glad to be here, Amy.
And I love that we're going to go back in time a little bit and share this part of the story. When you really had to make an ask that no one had asked before. It was very new, especially in our industry. And it's an incredible story of your resilience, your determination, a moment when kind of the odds were stacked against you and the organization. And yet you took the stage, you pitched your mission, you achieved remarkable success. It's what I often call MSH, or make success happen. And I can't wait to kind of walk through that time with you again, because I know there's just so much that we're going to learn from you. So let's go back 20 years. I want to kind of recreate the scene for everyone. You had been already running Vitamin Angels for 10 years, but you had come to some kind of crossroads with funding to take the organization to the next level. Can you just tell us what was going on at that time, at the 10-year mark of Vitamin Angels?
What was going on was that in the first 10 years, we really learned just how to do the work. We learned about logistics. We learned about finding partners. We learned the basics of doing public health. In 2004, so 10 years after we had started, I was trying to put together a very big deal with a very big pharma company and a very big technical service provider. And I actually flew to Bangkok to put together this deal. It fell apart because I learned there was bad blood between the two groups. And I was just so frustrated. I thought, I will never let that happen again. And so I started really building the board. I started really building a really dynamic board. And one of the people on the board, Tom Arts, who you know, and I went to the first Organic Center fundraiser, and it was like nothing the industry had ever seen before. I mean, usually fundraisers where a few people got up on stage and they did their pitch, but this was a show. I mean, this was a big production, and it was a mission possible. It was about, I think, getting 10% of the food industry into organics.
That's what I did with Anthony.
Yes. So that really got our attention. And remember, Tom leaned over and said, we have to do this for Vitamin Angels. We had never done a big event. And so the next year we started, putting together a big event. We had no experience doing it. We were in over our heads from the get-go. The board was really not supportive of it. They thought it was just going to be distracting to the work. And at the 11th hour, literally, I think in August, I think the fundraiser was going to be in September. In August, we realized that we did not have the right people running it. We had somebody who wanted to do a very low-key event and have kind of a sepia tone pictures and people doing Tai Chi. And I realized I had no confidence that was going to work. And Anthony Zalesi, who became one of our board members, and who had done the Organic Center event with you, offered to come in and help us. And he said, no, you have to do something with, really dynamic and exciting and, have something that people will be engaged about. And he introduced us to you. So it's very kind of you and generous to say that, we hired you to do it, but honestly, you saved our life. I mean, that event would not have happened and certainly would not have been as exciting as it was. I mean, we had 2 separate rooms. People went from a New York nightclub into the world that we work in. We had Tom had found somebody to pay for our first major video, which you helped put together. That was really exciting. I mean, it was a transformative event for us that really kind of put us on the map in the natural products industry, again, because it was an event that nobody had ever seen before. It was like, what's going on here? So
I remember too, it was at Expo East in Baltimore. And I remember it was very difficult for you to secure that spot. New Hope was kind of like, we already have enough nonprofit events going on. And I mean, there was definitely, some campaigning that I wasn't involved with, but I know you and your board were involved with to even get a spot there. And I mean, to this day, when I run into Fred Linder, which I did at Supply Side East recently, and he always sees me in these open arms and gives me a big hug, but I was scared to death of him because I know he was kind of running the show at New Hope at that time. And I remember he had allowed it, but it was kind of like with but it better be really good. And I'll never forget at some point during the fundraiser, I remember vividly him walking in the back. I don't know if you remember that, and just kind of sitting there. And then he stayed for the rest of the time. And when he stayed, I was like, okay, we're good. We're in with New Hope. We're going to be okay.
Yeah, it was. Oh yeah, it was. Everybody. It got people's attention, and it really let people see that we were a different organization, that we were doing something that was pretty dramatic and that had a big upside for the industry, quite honestly. I mean, I think people saw that, wow, this is going to give the industry so much good publicity and it's going to really validate what this industry was built on, which was supplements. So I think it turned out to be a win-win. And, Tom Tolworthy was at that event from the Vitamin Shop, and he actually went there reluctantly. One of our board members kind of pushed him into going, and he felt like he was being hustled a little bit. But at the end of the event, he came up to me, gave me his card, and he said, you need to come to New Jersey and talk to me. And that was the beginning of that relationship, which still is going on today. So
he became one of your best supporters, I remember.
Yeah. And one of the big consortiums that came as a result of that event, which was Jim Hamilton from DSM, Bob Orr from Ocean Nutrition, and Roland Gaylor from Natural Factors. I mean, Jim Hamilton is my chair now of my board. So I mean that event set the stage for our success, really, in so many ways.
Another memorable moment I remembered at that event. You mentioned the video that we had put together for you, and there was a crescendo in the video where it was slowly kind of getting blurry. It almost looked like there was a mistake, but actually the whole place went dark because we were trying to communicate this is what it's like to go blind if you don't have just a simple nutrient like vitamin A. And there was a hush in the room when that happened. You had mentioned how that event really started kind of bringing Vitamin Angels to a new light with the industry. What do you think was working about the message at that time? What was working? What were we doing that was working that really resonated with people at that moment?
I think it was a couple things. I mean, one was that we were taking supplements out of the good to have, nice to do, maybe you'll get sick less often, or if you get sick, you'll get over it more quickly, into being a centerpiece of global health. So that was a big aha for the industry to go, wow, you could, to realize that you could stop a child from going blind with high dose vitamin A was a tremendous proof point that, remember at this point, this is right around Deshay, right? Passing, that this is when the industry is getting attacked, that there's all these articles coming out about supplements are just, giving you expensive urine. It was a constant barrage of bad media. And all of a sudden we were coming along saying, wait, supplements work. You could stop a child from going blind. So I think we were a proof point at the moment when the industry really needed a solid proof point.
And I just want to get some context because we're talking like old friends here and dropping all these names, and maybe some of our old friends are watching and they know exactly what we're talking about. But can you just tell our audience that may be new to Vitamin Angels, what is it that Vitamin Angels does? How did it start, and what are the goals today and mission? How has it changed since when we first were working together on these fundraising events?
It's a lot of questions.
All right, we'll just start with the basics. What is Vitamin Angels?
Vitamin Angels is a public health nonprofit working to get evidence-based nutrition interventions to pregnant women from conception forward, and then to children up to the age of 5. The reason we focus on that time is because that's when women and children are most vulnerable. And so that's when we can have the greatest impact. And our work is across the United States. We work in every state in the United States. We work in 65 countries around the world. What has changed over these 30 years is initially we were doing public health work. We're handing out supplements. Over this time, we become a public health organization, meaning that we understand what the need is for building a sustainable and a scalable program. Those are the two keys to making a program successful globally. It has to be scalable, meaning it has to work in the village level, but then also at the state, at the county, and at the country, and then globally. But it also has to be sustainable. It has to be something that you go in and you don't just leave after a year, that you stay around for that, at least for the period when the children and the women are most vulnerable, but ideally beyond that. And so to do that, you have to build a lot of collaboration. You have to be doing, research work. You have to be interfacing with a lot of the technical agencies. You become a much more global public health organization. So it's been a major shift.
And, initially when you started, just going all the way back to the earthquake, when the whole idea of Vitamin Angels first came up, you were rallying the industry to donate product, and you did that, for many years. But there was a time when you had to ask them for money. How hard was that shift to go from asking for product, which is a little bit easier to ask for, and then asking for money? How hard was that for you?
Well, the earthquake, remember, I had been a midwife, so I understood how important nutrition was for pregnant women and newborn babies. And then the earthquake happened, and I reached out. And, at that point, I thought, the group that reached out to me was a medical relief group. And I thought, well, it made sense. They didn't have supplements. But I soon found out that even big organizations like Save the Children did not have a reliable, high-quality steady source of supplements. So all of a sudden we had work to do. The ask, I found a woman named Lynn Twist who wrote a book called The Soul of Money, and she changed my perspective on fundraising. Lynn Twist said at this, we had a couple meetings with her and she did some work with us. She said, fundraising is a healing art. I mean, when she said that, it was like, what?
What does that mean?
A healing art. And she was saying, you don't ask people for money. You ask them to join your mission. And that was the big shift. It was like, we weren't asking people, we were saying, look, we have a chance to reach women and children around the world and make a tremendous, really impact, give them a chance at a healthy life and a productive life. And we know how to do it. And all we need is the support, and we want you to join us. And that's still to this day. I mean, at our 30th, we ended the time when I was on stage, we said, join us. So it's an invitation to become part of something that's bigger than yourself. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's an invitation to say, look, you can be part of something that besides running your business, besides looking at sales, besides coming up with the next hot product, you could also be helping women and infants and children in the United States, in every state, and all over the world really have a life-changing and life-saving intervention that's going to change, how their lives go. So that was the big shift.
And when you made that mental shift on asking for people to join and then asking for funds, how has the success of, your fundraising efforts, how has that impacted Vitamin Angel's ability to expand its mission and reach more underserved populations?
Oh, it's been pivotal. It's been pivotal because we're a very unique organization. A lot of organizations doing this work get all their money from foundations or from the government. We are starting to get some money from foundations, which is going to help us to grow tremendously over the next 5 to 10 years. But our base of support has always been the natural products industry. And most of the funding that we get has been unrestricted. A lot of big organizations, 90+% of their funding is restricted, meaning they can only spend it on doing some certain work in certain countries. So it's very defined for them. We've always had the ability to pivot really quickly. And if we see there's a big need, we're a very agile organization, so we can make a decision and then act on it really quickly. And that has been, if there's a secret sauce, that's been the secret, is that we've been able to really respond to the need without going through, months of talking to the board and having committees. And, we've had an ability to just get in there and do the work. And I think people have really, really respected, and it's put us in front. I mean, today we're getting invited to talk to some of the biggest agencies in the world because they see the work that we're doing. And that work would not be possible without that funding that we get, which is unrestricted. And as I said, now there's a balance because we were getting some restricted funding. So now there's a balance that we're, working hard to maintain. But that's been the key over the last 30 years.
When you talk about, seeing an opportunity and being able to pivot and make something happen right in that moment, how do you communicate a sense of urgency or importance around your fundraising appeals when something like that comes up, especially with audiences that may be inundated with so many other fundraising requests? How do you make yours really stand out?
Well, the key is that we have the data, and the data is pretty stark. I mean, right now, today, in the United States, a woman has 3 times the chance of dying during pregnancy or childbirth than she does in Canada, Britain, France, Germany, or Australia. Where it's 3 times as high as in our peer countries, and we're the only country. I mean, that we're actually maternal and infant mortality rates have been increasing, and in fact, maternal mortality rates doubled between 2018 and 2021.
Wow.
So that's, and so when something happens, we just go right toward the data, toward the information, and tell people this is during COVID. We just told people, we said, look, our communities are getting hit really hard. I mean, that if you looked at the hospitalizations and the deaths in low resource communities, the Black, the Latina, the Indigenous, the undocumented, the incarcerated, I mean, those communities, that's where the suffering was the greatest. So we just try to focus on this is what's going on, this is what's going to happen, unless we get in good nutrition. And it's just the reality is that anytime there is an economic downturn, anytime there's civil strife or a war, anytime there's a climate event, nutrition gets hit the hardest. If we are having to kind of pay more at the pump for gas, it probably means that women in Guatemala or Uganda are seeing corn or rice or prices double or triple, and they're only being able to feed their kids once or twice a day instead of 3 times a day. It's inevitable that that's who's going to get hit the hardest. When there's a climate event and we notice that, it's been really hot or really cold this winter, it's going to be really hot this summer, what happens in other countries is that total crops are lost. I mean, they're just wiped out. And all of a sudden that family does not have any kind of stores of fruits or vegetables for the coming year. And so just letting people know what the families that we're serving, what they're facing is the best, that's the best information we give them. That's the best urgency because it is urgent. I mean, it's that, that
you have to paint that dire picture. You have to tell people what's really happening.
And you have to maintain a balance. We've always had a balance between letting people know what the information is and what the reality is. But when we show the people working with, we always show them in their dignity. Any photo, any video, any story that Vitamin Angel shows, it's, if you want to be shown, we would only take a picture. You'd want to be like, have your hair okay and have a nice dress on or something, but you want to be shown in your best light. Well, people are the same all over the world. I mean, they also want to be shown in their dignity. And Vitamin Angels has always been incredibly respectful to the women and the infants and the children we serve, is that we show their beauty and their hope and what's possible. They just need to get past, this certain crisis that's going on right now.
You mentioned these stories. What role does storytelling play in your fundraising efforts? I know you have taken people on trips before. I know that sometimes you speak from the stage or you have videos about things. What have you found to be most effective in telling the story of the people that you serve?
Storytelling is key. There's a adage from I did some work with long form commercials at one point, and the adage was facts tell, stories sell. That stories are what connect us to our humanity, to the other people that, they're just like us. I mean, that we go into a country and we speak a different language, we wear different clothes, we have different customs. But when, a mother starts telling me about losing a child and tears come to her eye, it's like, I'm a dad myself. I could feel it. How that is that our emotionality is exactly the same. We're wired the same way. We just are, living in very, very different circumstances. As soon as you could start to tell what that woman has to go through to get water or to feed her family or to take care of her kids when they're sick, you start to build that connection. I could tell you a story that I think kind of emphasizes this as far as how important it is. We were working with one of the largest chain drugstores in the world, and we did a employee engagement campaign for them. And we sent around a photo of different children and babies to every one of their retail locations. And we told a story about what that child's life was like. Fast forward to 6 months later, one of our biggest donors, our product donors, in Salt Lake City, was going on a trip, his own plane, and he was taking his family to Haiti. And he had to get passport photos. So he went into his local drug retailer, this partner of ours, to the photo counter, and he said, he wanted to get photos, and they went to help him. And the person behind the counter said, you're going for a vacation. That's so nice. He said, well, actually, we're going to do some mission work, and we're going to see some of these families that we're helping with supplements. And she said, oh, wait a second. And she runs into the back, and she comes back with this poster, and she says, see this child here? We're helping this child. And this company that I work for is doing such good work. And we work with this organization, Vitamin Angels, and they're working in these countries, and they're getting it. That's like when you reach that level of connection, that far down from, the executives to the corporate headquarters, to the regional people, to the store, to that employee, that something has really resonated. And it's the story that resonates. That's what gets across.
As you were building Vitamin Angels, were there any nonprofits that you looked at and said, wow, they're really doing this right, and that you tried to emulate? Did you ever notice, anything like, I think about storytelling, I always think about World Vision. They do such a good job with that. Are there any that you looked to that said, oh, and aspired to kind of be like?
There were people I looked at that I got inspired about the work they do. I wanted to be different. I wanted Vitamin Angels to be different from other organizations. I didn't want to do gala black tie of stuffy events. I didn't want to sit in an office all day. I wanted to be in the field. I wanted it to be authentic. I wanted it to be real. I didn't want it to be about us. I wanted it to be about our partners and the women and the children we were serving. I didn't want to show the destitute conditions. I wanted to show the beauty of the people. So I was trying to build a different organization. What I found were people who had actually done amazing work around the world, like Jim Grant, when he was really building the UNICEF Child Survival Task Force. That was really impressive to me because it was good people really trying to do good work. But at the get-go, I wanted Vitamin Angels to be a different organization. And I think that's part of our success. I mean, the other thing we did from the get-go was anybody who was working with us got to go into the field. Most organizations, it's just the program division that gets to go into the field. And if you're working in corporate services or IT or marketing, or, you never get to see the work. But I wanted people to see the work. I also wanted people in the industry who were supporting us to see the work, because I really felt that if people saw the women and the babies and the children, it would just go deep. And I thought they would be, and it has been true. They've been with us forever since that experience. And when people come to Vitamin Angels and they talk to our team, one of the things that happens is people are like, it's palpable. People can feel that it's alive. The work is really alive. And it's because everybody here they've seen the women, the infants, and the children. They know how real it is. I mean, it's become more difficult because we've grown so quickly, but that's still our intention, is that if you work here, at some point, we want to get you out into the field so you can see the work.
That's amazing. I think that's so important. You've done so many great things, and I always think of you as an entrepreneur first, because I know you have that background. You've raised money from a stage. You've made direct asks from the stage. You've taken people on exposure trips. You've had events. What do you think's been the best strategy to get your organization to where it is today?
I think the best strategy has been to not look back and keep going forward. People always say, "How can you believe it? Can you believe?" And it's like I don't look behind. I mean, I'm always looking at what's ahead, and where, what could have the biggest impact. And even if we're not sure about how we're going to do it, if we think it needs to be done, we'll go ahead and do it. So in 2018, when we started the global prenatal campaign, one of my board members, Dr. Black, who's one of the preeminent public health doctors in the world from Johns Hopkins, Bloomberg School of Public Health, he told me, we had a December board meeting, he said, Howard, you got this research, we got to do something more. I mean, we were already handing out prenatal multiples, but what he was saying is you need to make it a campaign. It has to be a center. People on my board, people who were even in the organization were like, why? We're already doing it. Why do we have to make it a campaign? But I knew that if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be fulfilling our mission. I mean, our mission was to help women, infants, and children live healthier life. And if there was an intervention out there, which now there was, multiple prenatals, that was really going to have this big impact, we had to make it a centerpiece. And so we got in, right away realized we're in over our heads. I mean, the funding for this, we didn't have. I mean, we didn't have it in place. And the shipping costs alone, we realized right away we're going to be over $1 million a year. We were going from a bottle of vitamin A that, you only needed 2 capsules a year to reach a child to protect them from going blind. A bottle that had 500 capsules in it could reach 250 children. With a prenatal, a bottle reaches 1 mother and 1 baby. And so if you're going to reach 250 mothers and babies, it's a much bigger logistics problem. And then the cost really went way up. But we didn't let that stop us. We just said, this is what needs to be done. And I think people really responded, that they just saw that we were determined, that we were just going to keep forging ahead. And if we saw something that we really felt was going to be an improvement and really help grow, our work substantially. I mean, in the last few years, we realized that implementation science, which is like finding what the challenges are for women in low resource communities to have a healthy pregnancy, we started doing implementation science research. We never thought about that before, but it just became obvious that if we were going to be more effective, we had to have data so that we could understand how to build the program and tailor make it to what the conditions were in those communities that were preventing these women from getting, the nutrients they needed for a healthy pregnancy. So it's continued to shift, and we've just continued to try to stay in front of, what was going to have the biggest impact.
How do you know when it's time to raise the bar or to increase your goals or to take the mission to the next level? How does something happen where you're like, okay, we're going to have to buckle down, raise more money, take it to the next level? What are kind of the signs of that when you know it's time to expand what you're doing?
Usually it's the research and the data. And then, I mean, fortunately right now, we have a lot of public health professionals, that are working with. We've got a lot of people from Johns Hopkins, Bloomberg School of Public Health, and other institutions. So we have a very, very strong knowledge base now. And so we're constantly getting new information about what's out there and what the data looks like and, what the opportunities are. So we're always following that. And then we focus continually on World Health data as far as maternal deaths, infant deaths, and where the need is the greatest, and just try to keep being responsive. The world changes really quickly, and all of a sudden, there's a war in Ukraine, and shipping supplies are in danger, and then we're having to look at how that's going to affect the women in the communities that we're serving. So it's a constant assessment of what needs to happen. I mean, when COVID happened, we all of a sudden had to shift from how we were doing our work, and we found different ways to reach the women in need. Some were like mobile clinics, some were curbside deliveries, some were working with state governments, which we hadn't been doing in certain areas. But we didn't. It wasn't something we had a choice. It was like, well, look, we've got to do our work, and so how are we going to do it more effectively now?
So always just keeping an eye on the data changes and and being flexible to what the needs are versus what I think sometimes we get stuck in this like, no, this is what I plan to do, but then the environment changes, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I had an argument with my CFO. This is years ago when we were going to do the global prenatal campaign. And he was like, don't do that. We're already telling people you can reach, this is going to throw off the metrics of, it costs 25 cents to reach a child with vitamin A. And you don't need to do it. And I said, no, we do. I said, if we just stay doing what we've been doing and don't evolve, we'll be irrelevant. And I think that that's true. I think if you don't evolve and you don't constantly update your message and your work, at a certain point, it's the same old, it becomes, when you go into stores and they have the container on the counter that, you could put something in to help do some good work. But at a certain point, it becomes invisible. I mean,
Right.
It's like, oh, it's been here for a long time. You just stop noticing it. You have to constantly tell the people you're working with, I mean, the people within your organization, your donor partners, and also the people that are helping you reach that end user in the field. You've got to keep on top of being relevant. If you're not relevant, you'll fade away. I mean, there's just too much going on in the world that you've got to stay in front of being relevant and letting people know that you're serious and you're doing work that is going to help them because you're being informed by good research and good data.
I love that. And I think that the relevancy is true for nonprofits, but it's true for businesses too. I think what you just said actually gave me chills because if you don't stay out in front of what's happening and keep up with technology and keep up with what's happening in the world, then yeah, you can be really left behind. And in this day and age, like really fast, I'm noticing more and more. I mean, you'll be in the dust if you don't keep up. As we wrap up, I just, I'm always in awe of your career. I'm feel privileged to have been able to work with you. It's been a highlight for my career to have done so. How do you hope to leave a legacy of what you've built at Vitamin Angels so that other founders or people wanting to start, nonprofits or they have missions can learn how to be as successful as you have been in accomplishing your mission? How do you hope to leave that legacy?
I mean, my hope is that, all you could be is yourself, right? I mean, your biggest asset is you. And Vitamin Angels, it's a reflection of the people who work here and what I always wanted, which is I wanted it to be authentic. I wanted people to care. I wanted to make sure the work was consistent. I mean, that we were doing what we said we were doing. And I think that that's what I'm hoping will follow through. I mean, we identified behaviors and values a few years ago. We did a visioning exercise. And, one of the things, the values of Vitamin Angels is families first. And so, of course, that's the centerpiece of our work is that we're trying to help families have a chance to be healthy and to lead, productive lives. But I've also always made it a priority to have that reflected in the families within our organization. I mean, the people that are working there, I was talking to one of our people in programs the other day, and she just got back from her maternity leave. She said, I'm so thankful, that everybody's been so supportive. But it's like, if we're not true to what we're saying for ourselves, then, what does it really matter? So I want that authenticity and that, the work. I always want the work to really go back to impact and how we're going to be able to help those women and children that we're serving. And if we do that, then I'll be happy. It's not about me. It's not even about, anybody else who's working. It's really about these women and children and families who, for no fault of their own, are just living in very, very challenging circumstances. And, they'll wake up at 4:00 in the morning with their, maybe holding a baby and holding another kid's hand in tow and walk for 3 hours to get to a vitamin intervention that we're doing because they know it's going to make a difference in their child's life. And when I meet them, it's so clear to me that I would do the same thing. I would do exactly the same thing. And so I want that, that connection. I don't ever want to lose that connection. I want to have the humanity lead our work and kind of make sure that we're being respectful, but also on top of that we can make sure we can have the biggest impact for that family.
Well, I have to say, one of the things I respect most about you is that, no matter how large Vitamin Angels has grown, it's such a huge operation, you have always been the same person. I can run into you anywhere. You're the same person. You have the same heart. You have the same mission. So I definitely think that you're leaving that legacy, and it's a beautiful thing, Howard. So I thank you for being on the show today. What's your pitch to our audience? What do you want them to know about Vitamin Angels? How can they join your mission?
Well, I'll make two pitches. One is for Amy Summers and pitch is that as I said, she saved Vitamin Angels at the get-go, and her work and what pitch has done, it doesn't follow the standard template. It's much more creative and much more intuitive and much more dynamic as far as really helping. So I have tremendous respect for what you've been able to accomplish. For Vitamin Angels, I'd say join us. It's an opportunity. We don't get that many opportunities to do something great in our lives. Sometimes it's when a family member or friend gets sick and you get to show up. Sometimes it's just when people have kids and they get to try to be a good parent. This is something that's great. I mean, it's something that's really changing lives in the most dynamic way. And it's a chance for us to do something together that's much greater than ourselves. So vitaminangels.org. Let us know who you are. We want to work with you.
Well, thank you so much, Howard, for joining us today. And I want to encourage everyone to share this episode and, join the cause of Vitamin Angels. They do amazing work. You will be transformed in your heart by working with Vitamin Angels. Go to vitaminangels.org and support their mission of addressing malnutrition in pregnant women and children while providing them access to life-saving and life-changing nutritional solutions. And thank you for joining us on this episode of Pitch Live with Amy Summers. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and give us a rating or review. Your feedback helps us plan future episodes. And I hope you were inspired today by Howard to get out there to advocate for others, which is really what he spent his whole career doing is pitching for others and making lives better for others and making success happen. As a bonus, you can join us at Nisi Vox, where you can get motivated, hone your communication skills, binge as much mentorship as you want whenever you need it. The link's going to be in the show notes, along with all of my social media handles and all of Howard's and all the ways to get in touch with Vitamin Angels. So let's keep making success happen. Thank you so much, Howard, for being on the show.